Hey, guy, you don't even want to know how long it actually took me to think and do and sadly execute all that. I figure I better do it now while there's 18 page views instead of hopefully many more in the future when it'll be a little more self-serving. But right now it's just a little bit. Thanks for coming back to the second, or if this is your first time watching, thank you for coming at least this time around. A few quick notes, or at least one before we get going. I want to thank Anthony Bourdain for actually retiring. I didn't know that was going to be happening, and then I watched today's No Reservations, and lo and behold, it's the final season. So, Travel Channel, the shuttlecock is in your court. Here we go. My first trip out of the United States was to Canada, but that doesn't really count. So my first trip out of the United States was to Mexico in 1998. My family had purchased a cruise that took us from San Diego to all the main hotspots along the Pacific side of Mexico. The spring break vacation was an enjoyable experience that included my first, second, and third time getting drunk along with my first stranger makeout, the latter obviously having something to do with the prior. I was 15 and couldn't have been happier with the cruise. There was free ice cream too. Once again with family, my next time out of the country was to Europe. Chris, my older brother, was studying in Salzburg, Austria, spending more time in the pubs than in the classroom. He was a sophomore in college, myself an awkward, acne-blooming 17-year-old. For 2 weeks, the Myers ran around Austria, Italy, and Germany, taking in all the sights one would expect to see. My youngest uncle also came with us, providing me with a pseudo-brother whenever Chris wasn't with us. Alcohol was again debuting itself to me in new ways, this time in the form of light, A. So every time I do this from now on, it's going to be parentheses. In the form of light, and dark, yep, beer. Like with Mexico, I took home stories from my friends of late nights stumbling about in foreign lands, but still fell short of my uncle's loot, who in time netted a wife, the loveliest woman on the train to Venice that put up with my brother's jagged German. Chris's location was once again the reason for my third trip over U.S. borders, this time to Panama, where he is in his second year of Peace Corps. Luckily, his Spanish was better than his German, and getting around the country was much easier when we weren't repairing flat tires caused by my brother's insistence that he should drive the pothole-ridden roads of Panama. 2 weeks were spent touring the western territories of Panama that included coffee plantations, beaches of both the Pacific and Atlantic, and the best New Year's of my life in Bocas del Toro. I returned to finish my senior year of college, versed in the ways of the South American country, but absent of its language. I was jealous of my brother, who fluently toured us wherever we needed to go, speaking to anyone with ease. Wanting the power that he held, I knew something drastic had to happen. After a summer of caddying abandoned dunes golf resort, I moved to Seattle to join the majority of my friends from college who, in some sick manifest destiny, I think it's fair to call it insecurity, moved there post-graduation. Once settled, I began chasing things like careers, women, and a hopeless dream every once in a while. You know what this does? Sucks your bank account dry. I had purchased a new computer, a high-end video camera, and started dating a sweetie to only sell, and break up. For better or worse, the girl lasted longer than the other things. Life started looking up at the beginning of 2007. I acquired a new job as a sales rep for a very reputable outdoor clothing company, a new car, and by a new, I mean a used Honda Element, and felt I was on my way to a successful career in a field I loved. By 2008, I had been laid off and was working at a restaurant, happy to be bussing tables. The whole debacle saw my savings increase, but at a very low level. 2007 ended up being a blessing, however, as I realized at least 3 things about the new little chunk of life that I was leading. I liked working in a restaurant. I made more money working in a restaurant. And sometime in the near future, I needed to get out of the country again. Plans started to form in my head. I began running ideas and places around select groups of people, mostly close friends and others that I knew had traveled post-college. I still did the occasional office job interview, handling them well in my opinion, but went 0 for 3 when it came down to the hire. These results only pushed me further into a must-get-out-of-here mind state. By spring of 2008, I decided that Australia and graphic design school was the plan. I even showed my parents a brochure. They approved, but as usual with me, didn't take it too seriously. They were right not to. I got as far as the visa application process before opting not to shell over $5,000, half of my potential tuition. Australia wanted to make sure I was serious. I was, but not $5,000 up front serious. It took only a week and a slow night at the restaurant for the next idea to arrive. Why don't I go to South America, starting in Panama where my brother still has connections, and only spend Australia's asking price on the whole trip? Instantly, I began projecting future earnings in my head, coming to the conclusion that by the end of 2008, I could have enough put away to travel the period of time I wanted and come back home with a bit of a cushion. Now this was a plan. The parents once again approved, waiting for further action to be taken, and this time I delivered. My brother liked the idea and accepted my self-invite to one of his Panamanian plantation communities, and also proved helpful with budgeting figures. With strong work ethic and ambition, I began serving at the restaurant. 6 months from the planned departure in January, a chance conversation with one of my coworkers during a random lunch shift sparked a whole new angle. Jake, a fellow server that I had been trading books with, offhandedly mentioned that he was leaving for South America in November. Instantly, I perked up and told him of my plans. From then on, all our conversations revolved around the Southern Hemisphere. Meetings were had to discuss dates that we might link up as we both had volunteering gigs arranged for the first half of our travels. One thing was for sure, though. We have to experience Machu Picchu together. Leading up to departure, answering general questions from seemingly successful classmates, I quickly followed my statement of, yeah, I'm still at the restaurant with, but I'm traveling for the first half of next year. This always got raised eyebrows and pats on the back. Part of me still thought the only reason I could do this trip was because I didn't have something worthwhile in Seattle interesting enough to make me stay. This newfound future gave me a reason to work harder, making as much money as possible before the new year to pad my eventual return. By late summer, I was prepared financially, mentally, and physically. Actually, my dentist wasn't too excited with my erupting wisdom teeth to travel for up to 8 months. Everything was in order. My room in the apartment, rented. My passport, shiny and new. The first 4 months of the trip organized? You bet. All those loose ends were tied until one phone call. An old college roommate, golf teammate, and general good friend was visiting town. Graced with his presence, my roommates and I decided to throw a party in his honor. Many were invited and many showed up. I had posted a sign in the restaurant inviting all to attend. Megan, a hostess, was one of the attendees. I was happy to have her, but spent most of my time with others due to a past moment that led me to the simple conclusion that she was not interested in me, at least romantically. Blurry dreamwave. It happened a year and a half prior, during my first week of employ. I know, trying to move fast. I was resetting a table in a quiet corner of the restaurant before the dinner rush when Megan hurriedly walked over with a birthday card and rose petals in hand to decorate another reserved table for the evening. She always wore flats, and her gait had her feet pointed a bit outward, but she still moved with confidence. Excellent posture. Her cocktail dresses always fit her supple frame well, the straps seeming to float above her shoulders. From those soft shoulders, her straight, rich chestnut hair would begin, and if you looked hard enough, which I did, you would notice that the inside layer was darker than the shiny exterior. Once in a while, she'd put her hair in a ponytail, unveiling the unique curves of her petite, subtle ears. If she wanted, her playful hazel eyes could see everything inside of you, all the while giving nothing away. For some reason confident, I began my very unoriginal spiel in a tone as if asking for her name. Hey, I'm John. Do you want to maybe get a drink after work sometime? The already top button on my white Oxford pinched a bit more in weight of an answer. As if expecting the question, Megan's reply required not even enough thought to break her concentration of fluttering rose petals about the table. I'm 20. Oh, okay. Well, do you want to hit golf balls sometime? Sadly, this was the quickest counteroffer I could conjure, already feeling a bit defeated because of her age. I don't golf, she briskly replied. And with that, she walked away, and I gave up. We worked throughout the year together just fine. Since we're both mature individuals, my date request was only met with minimal ridicule from my side of the staff, who had either tried and failed as well, or didn't even have the gusto to attempt. As time passed, I would spend the slow part of shifts talking to her at the hostess stand, and we began to develop a rapport. We discussed her failed dates, her classes, my trip plans, and of course other restaurant gossip, although it's fair to say that neither of us were too interested in it. Laughter was had, a friendship developed. Did I ever think she was going to change her mind about golf? No. The morning after my friend's party, word came from a mutual friend that I should have been spending more time with Megan. After explaining my case of why this friend is mistaken, they assured me that all I needed to do was make a phone call. A week later, wrapped in blankets, Megan and I sipped cranberry cider. Even now of age, she doesn't drink. Alone on the roof of my apartment, taking in the stars and watching the ferries float across Elliott Bay. It was the first time I'd been nervous for a first kiss since high school, and it took me near an hour to deliver. It was sincere, supple, and innocent, or in other words, everything I thought it would be. We were sweet on each other, and with Megan being the type to not mess around, I knew she would want commitment. I was more than happy to give it to her. The fall came to pass, and my original plan of not becoming attached failed. Love, as said before, never was part of the equation. But when I would think of the future with me and her graduated, I began to accept the idea of something long-term. This, as a chronic bachelor, wasn't the original plan. I was going to be the cool guy who hung out with an attractive girl, had a ton of fun, and when the time came for me to leave, we would go our separate ways, sans emotional scarring. By departure date, I was in need of daily blood transfusions. But I digress. I left Seattle because I was bored. Life was becoming too routine. I was jealous of friends and my brother who had traveled and returned with a quill of grand stories at their disposal. I felt post-college America had betrayed me. Wasn't I supposed to walk off the stage at graduation and trade my diploma for a dream job? I had hit my mid-20s and thought, fuck, this whole life thing isn't really going as planned. Let's come up with a new plan. And so I did. The first 4 months of 2009 are concrete. I'll be in Panama and Ecuador and Peru, and I'll be happy, and then I'll do Machu Picchu, and I don't know what after that. But I'll do something, and then I'll come home, and everything will have changed to be great. Sounds about right, right? Meetings were had to discuss dates that we might link up as we both had volunteering gigs arranged for the first half. That is a hard sentence.